Whakalofa atu, yokwe, and welcome to another episode of The Pacific Way. We're glad you can join us once again. Now, the Pacific is often vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and none more so than on the atoll of Niue, known as the Rock. In our story tonight, we will find out how support from the Australian government, in collaboration with private contractors, Australian Bureau of Meteorology, Geoscience Australia, and the Pacific community, has led to the construction of a state-of-the-art infrastructure that provides critical weather and sea level information not only for Niue, but for the Pacific as well.
The Rock of Polynesia rises proud and tall against the crashing waves of the vast Pacific blue. Niue is one of the largest raised coral atolls in the world, its steep limestone cliffs providing a breathtaking introduction into a lush and rugged landscape. As with the rest of the Pacific, Niueans have a strong connection to the ocean. For generations, those that call these shores home have relied on the bounty of the sea for survival and recreation.
We have a son, he's only young, Ines' brother, Abi, and he's a young fisherman and he's on canoe. Most important lesson of all, before the fisherman goes out, he have to understand the reading of the tide out into the ocean. That's including the shell picking people and the reef fishing people. It's very important that they understand and know how to read the tide. Our tide goes down in March, then it comes back up in September, August, September, and start to get rough. But no, the tide now, it's still dry. It's very good for the shell pickers and the fishermen also. And the whale watchers, which is very good because they go out on the boat and the tide is very good. So we all benefit from this weather. But it's a sign of something has changed.
Against the scenic backdrop of Sir Robert's Wharf in the capital Alofi, the sole shipping port on the island, major construction is underway. Once completed, this impressive 3-meter tall structure will provide critical weather and sea level information not only for Niue but the entire Pacific region. This tide gauge is part of the Australian government-funded Pacific Sea Level Monitoring Project. Operating since 1991, the project provides the longest continuous record of sea level and climate data in the Pacific. It is funded and maintained in partnership with the Australian Bureau of Meteorology's Climate and Ocean Support Program, Geoscience Australia, Pacific Island Governments and the Pacific Community SPC.
The Niue tide gauge is the 14th tide gauge to be constructed as part of the Pacific Sea Level Monitoring Project. The Niue had been clamoring for a tide gauge for many years, but because of the conditions there, because of the steep limestone cliffs and the absence of a fringing reef, there wasn't really a good location where one tide gauge could be located that wouldn't suffer from overtopping in cases of severe weather, but also that provided an area that would never run dry during low tide. As soon as the technology reached a level that we could accommodate, we looked into the option of doing radar sea level monitoring rather than acoustic sea level monitoring, which is what the 13 other stations that we have in the Pacific, they're monitoring using a sound signal that goes down to the top of the water and comes back up. But radar technology has improved significantly, so we looked into Niue. Instead of doing an acoustic monitor, we would have two simultaneously operating radar monitors, radar sensors, that is, and those would provide a backup to one another. The Sir Robert's Wharf in Alofi is the only location for ships to bring goods on and off of Niue. So it's a very high traffic area, and it's important for any instrumentation that we would be located there to not interfere with that normal flow of traffic. We looked long and hard for a good location for the tide gauge. There were some false steps, but everyone is quite happy with the final location where it is now.
In terms of the benefits for Niue, they'll have a full weather station located here on the wharf, which will give wind speed, direction, barometric pressure, air temperature, water temperature, 3 different sea level sensors that we have as well. So that data will actually be going back to the Bureau of Meteorology in real time, and it will then be available on a public website which can be accessed by anybody in the Pacific. As well, Niue is getting what we call a local data display, which means that if the internet connection on Niue drops out during severe weather conditions, that the local intranet on the island itself, which is a fibre optic network being put in at the moment, will be able to take the data directly from our station through the Niue government network, and that will provide real-time data to the Met Service and to the emergency services on the island so that they can get real-time data as well.
Currently, only 6 of us.
Niue's meteorology office keeps Niueans informed of the latest weather forecasts and tide predictions. Once the tide gauge is up and running, it will be able to provide real-time data, which will also be linked to the other tide gauges of other Pacific Island countries, allowing the user to see what is happening at any of the stations at a given time. For one man who has lobbied for the installation for over 20 years, this development has been a long time coming.
Met Service here is the focal point for receiving and disseminating of cyclone warnings, including tsunami warnings for the general public. So that is our main role. For the past years, we continue to get tide gauge calendars for Niue from Australia. And these were based on the data collected from the tide gauge in Tonga, Samoa and the Cook Islands, which is not very accurate. To justify this, I have some complaint from the locals in the past and current that the prediction was not accurate. The prediction was based on data recorded for other countries. If we look, for example, how far Tonga to Niue, how far Samoa to Niue, Cook Islands, there's quite a lot of big ocean in between. But having this tide gauge installed at our wharf, record the data, and predict the tide for Niue will be very, very accurate. Now, we are the first island in the Pacific to have this new tide gauge system, which includes the GPS, but the previous ones, they don't have those.
The information provided by the tide gauge not only informs the daily weather broadcasts and tide predictions, it also provides a solid foundation for the development of Niue's communities and industries.
The tide gauge is going to help us provide the data for our planning, for future planning, and also the policy direction that we're going, and not only policy but also the development aspirations, how to guide, we're using those data to inform our decisions. I looked at it as more from the information for food security, ensuring that the people will have access to food, and with the changes in the climate, what we used to know is not necessarily the same anymore. So we need this technology to help us, guide us. I think this is the opportunity for us to look at how we could utilize the technology, utilize the traditional knowledge, and utilizing the local knowledge, and how we could further develop Niue and ensure that it's resilient.
On 4th November 2015, Niue's tide gauge was officially launched by the Niuean government, Australia's Minister for International Development and the Pacific, the Honourable Stephen Chiobo, and the Pacific Community's Director General Dr. Colin Tuki-Tonga. The occasion was witnessed by Pacific Island leaders and development partners who were in Niue for SPC's 9th Governing Body Conference.
Changing climate patterns are causing not only sea level rise, but also an increase in number of extreme weather events like cyclones and tsunami. For the Pacific region, this is potentially a deadly combination of high water and wave activity from an increasing number of storms. If we had a tide gauge, we could have been better prepared for Cyclone Offa that hits Niue in 1990, and again in 2004 with Cyclone Heta. Cyclone Heta was catastrophic. The sea came inland for more than 100 meters, flooding the western villages from Awasele to Hikutamaki, damaging homes and causing tragic loss of life. I wish to acknowledge Shonetasi Puretoa for his insistence during these years in trying to get this equipment in place before he goes to retirement.
SPC is not only a partner in the sea level monitoring project, but a key user of the data. I cannot overemphasize how important the data is from this network. In the past few years alone, we have used it to model tsunamis in Nuku'alofa, upgrade navigational charts in Port Vila and Luganville, develop pilot training simulation for Suva Harbour, model the effects of ocean inundation on groundwater in Kiribati, and to delimit maritime zones and boundaries across the region.
But I think ultimately we all recognise that through this investment, the Pacific community, Niue, Australia, all of us together will be better as a consequence of this structure that's been built and the information that we glean from it, and more importantly, the way in which we use that data to make sure we have a more resilient, more economically diverse, broader and deeper economic agenda throughout the Pacific.
I'm very proud of this great achievement. I'm happy that I will be leaving the service, and I hope whoever takes over from where I finish will continue the good work. The only message I have to tell our people of Niue is to look after the tide gauge. It's not the med-service equipment, it's the tide gauge for Niue, as long as it stays on the wharf for many, many years.
Welcome back. You're watching The Pacific Way. Water and sanitation is a basic human right that many take for granted, but in many parts of the Pacific, that is still a critical area of concern. In Nauru, the European Union and the Pacific Community have been working with the government to ensure that the people of Nauru have access to secure and safe drinking water.
In the Republic of Nauru, the European Union-funded Global Climate Change Alliance Pacific Small Island States project that is being implemented by the Pacific Community SPC is jointly working with the government of Nauru to ensure that the people of Nauru have access to secure and safe drinking water. The project is working with the Nauru Department of Commerce, Industry and Environment (CIE) and the Nauru Utilities Corporation (NUC) to help build the country's resilience against the impacts of climate change and climate variability on Nauru's water security by improving household rainwater harvesting systems and national storage systems of desalinated water. The project will contribute to enhancing water security in Nauru, particularly during times of drought. Nauru is a small island developing state with a land area of 21 square kilometers and a population of just over 10,000 people. In previous years, Nauru had a thriving phosphate industry which provided employment and economic growth. However, the primary supplies of phosphate were depleted in the 1990s. And now there is just a small secondary phosphate mining industry contributing to the country's economy. The government of Nauru is now the main employer. Other employment opportunities are found in the fishing and construction sectors. Nauru's geography makes it susceptible to risks associated with climate variability and climate change. These risks include extremely varied rainfall patterns and prolonged drought periods which could last as long as 36 months.
Basically, we got three main sources. The major one is RO system, where we're producing close to about 2 million liters a day. That's provided if we are being able to run all the three RO plants. On the other side would be basically rainwater catchment, and the other one is the breakage water, underground water system. For production system in ROs, it's fairly expensive. Then the other thing is we have to deliver to the communities, so that is a constraint at this stage. It's like last 2 weeks we had a bit of drought, and we are expecting this drought will be a longer one, and fortunately we had rain, but during those 2 weeks our demand just went up, like including RPC and NUC, close to about 900 kiloliters a day. If we don't have the electricity supply to the ROs, then the ROs are not running at all.
But there are problems with the water lines. The problem with the water lines is actually there are a high level of bacteria that has been contributed from poor sanitation systems, as well as the salinity level to it. But they do have access to the groundwater, but it's not for drinking purposes or anything. It's more like just an alternative water use, like for toilets and laundry and washing and other things. But very minimal in terms of drinking, using it as a drinking water.
In 2012, the Nauru government identified water security as a top priority for disaster risk and climate change adaptation efforts. Between 2013 and 2014, the project also assisted Nauru in the preparation of the Republic of Nauru Framework for Climate Change Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction, RONADAPT. RONADAPT also prioritizes water security as a key activity. The SPC GCCA PSIS project is working with the Nauru Utilities Corporation (NUC) and the Department of Commerce, Industry and Environment (CIE) to help improve Nauru's capacity in rainwater harvesting and storage of national desalinated water. In July 2014, a feasibility and design study was conducted to assess options for increasing Nauru's national water storage capacity. As a result, the Nauru government opted to demolish an obsolete decommissioned National Water Storage Tank B10 and to construct a new 4 million litre water storage tank. Demolition of the B10 tank will start in July 2015 and is being undertaken by a local contractor. This will pave the way for the construction of a new water storage tank in the future. Besides national water storage, the project has also contributed to the improvement of individual rainwater harvesting systems. In 2013, the GCCA PSIS project funded a roof assessment technical survey which covered a total of 1,077 households.
The roof survey was actually done in two parts. The first part was done through the community. They identified the households with the damaged roofing and guttering downpipes. And then we hired a local contractor to provide the technical assessment for us.
A key part of the project is building the capacity of the Nauruan communities in water conservation and awareness of climate change and its associated implications. In April 2015, the Pacific community conducted a water, sanitation and hygiene WASH training of trainers workshop for 20 participants from various government sectors, private organizations and youth groups. The participants are now equipped to carry out the WASH training in their own communities and also implement water safety and conservation exercises themselves.
The training is, I think it's relevant. It is very relevant to what we around the community, like the issues surrounding health. Sometimes we have outbreaks with young children and in the general population, in the public, with outbreaks of sicknesses such as diarrhea and other water-related sicknesses.
The isolated and geophysical nature of Nauru makes transportation, loading and unloading of cargo a very difficult undertaking. This has serious implications for the timely implementation of any infrastructure project.
The biggest challenge with our port is because it's an open port, it's not sheltered. So our operations relies on the weather. It's very hard when it's moving when the current is moving around and the swinging of containers gets very dangerous sometimes. But the challenge is to get him on the barge first. At the same time, we use a mooring system. Currently, the mooring systems are down, so the vessel we're working for the last few years was more like on a drift discharge, which is very difficult and very slow.
Future projects in Nauru must factor into the planning and design components the need for extra time to cater for challenges and delays that are very likely to be encountered during transportation, loading and unloading periods.
Be sure to check out all our videos on the Pacific Community YouTube channel and the Pacific Way Facebook page. Unfortunately, time has caught up with us, but be sure to join us again next week. And until then, aere ra, au revoir, mua te manda.